All right, it is a misery Monday on the Big Douglas Show, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have a good time today. Let's start out here. Evie from the Junkies with us today. What was the? I have a feeling, but what was the fan reaction today on the callers as they called in today?
I don't know. It's kind of same old skins. Dare I say that? Our expectations are so low these days. We've seen this play out this way so many times. It's just incredible how we can have great expectations in an off season and even through week one or so, and just have the bottom fall out seemingly, in week two or three. We've been through this many times. It's frustrating. I still think there's some potential here. I think there's some things to build on, but to see them come out and play the way they did in that first half was really disheartening, and it just made people feel like, here we go again.
My buddy House is here from the Ringer. Now, when I emailed you about coming on today, it was after the win in Jacksonville, and you were not. You did not think we'd be having the same conversation that we would have had last Monday. House, you were a pessimist on this team. I don't blame you, but what were we looking at on Sunday?
It's always trust, but verify. I hope for the best. This is the make it or break it year for Ron Rivera, for his staff. But EB hit on it. This is just variations on the same theme for us year after year. I guess the thing that I was most disappointed by is that stark contrast between how they looked in the first game against Jacksonville. That was a team prepared on both sides of the ball. And yesterday, that lack of preparedness, especially on the defensive side, it looked like they didn't have anybody advanced scouting what Detroit was capable of offensively. The jet sweep caught them by complete surprise. My man DeAndre Swift, we watched him do the same thing to Philadelphia. We didn't have a scheme in place to try and slow him down. And you can't let Jared Goff get comfortable. He's not a top-notch quarterback, but if you give him time, he can be accurate. He did play in the Super Bowl. So I just was frustrated by what looked to me as a fan as a lack of preparedness. And that with this staff at this point where they are, and I'm interested in I know we'll touch on it with Swaggy. Jack Del Rio's got to be feeling some pressure. He's just got to be. It's time for some accountability, I think.
No doubt. And Chris, I was just getting ready to do that. It's interesting. They asked John Allen this morning during his little press briefing about the scheme. He said, "No, I didn't like to put it on the scheme. He likes to put it on the players." I know from talking to you, Chris, you kind of feel the same way. Obviously, Del Rio is not getting fired today, but what did you see from the defense, and what do you do with players versus scheme? How does it work for you?
Like I said, it's almost 50-50 because no matter what the coaches call, the players have to make that play work. But at the same time, the coaches, they study the film, they understand the tendencies, what teams like to do on first, second down, what kind of plays they like out of certain formations, and they trying to give you that information so that when you get into the game, you can make the best play possible. But yesterday we made Jared Goff look like a freaking Hall of Fame quarterback. It was like, and I was at the Giants game yesterday because I have one of my high school teammates. Well, he's not a teammate. He's one of the guys that came after me. He plays for the Giants now. So I was at the game trying to keep up with the game on my phone. And it was like, oh my God, we're down 21-0. Like, oh God, what the hell happened? Like, no way, not to Detroit. You know what I mean? So then I wound up catching most of the second half just watching it on my phone. And it was just like time after time again, we'll have one good play on defense and then we'll give up a third and long. Like, I'm watching the game from my phone inside the Giants Stadium, and I get so much hope, like, oh, we're back in the game. And then next thing you know, our defense gives up another touchdown. Like, how the hell don't we get off the field on 3rd and 13? Running back falls on the ground, gets up, jukes the whole team, and scores. I'm in the stands.
That was the most embarrassing thing I've seen in years.
Bro.
How DeAndre Swift falls, gets up, and still beats everybody to the other side of the field.
And no one even touched him. No one even touched him. That was the most disappointing part, bro. It was just like we have too many talented guys on our defense for us not to be effective. We have too many good guys on our defense to not be able to bring pressure on Jared Goff all day. You know, we just gave our offensive line coach all the praise last week. This week we come out and can't even block a freaking rookie. Greg Granted is a good rookie, but he had, 3 sacks? Like, so you can't just blame it all on the defense. I mean, we couldn't block a soul on their defensive line. And that's surprising because we did pretty well against Jacksonville, who had about 6-7 sacks this last game. You know what I mean? So, it's a little bit disappointing, but then it's like, here we go again, So we just have to see what team shows up next. Hopefully we can get it corrected because we have talent. So then that brings up the question, is it the talent or is it the coaching? It just remains to be seen. It's only 2 games in, but, we still have to make a change and just figure out what it is. Because, if it's the players, then find new players. If the coaching, then get rid of Jack, But one way or another, we have to figure out what we're going to do because if we won 8 games with Tyler Heineken, we got to be able to win 10 or more with Carson Wentz. You know what I mean? So, it's frustrating. It's definitely frustrating.
EB, it's crazy, right? Because the team we were told it was going to be built on the defense. It's obvious that it's an offensive run team now. They scored 27 points in the second half. I don't understand how this team can't score in the first half. It was incredible. You know what I hate more than anything are these 15 scripted plays that our guys just love to run because it was obvious whatever they had scripted wasn't going to work. EB, it was frustrating.
Well, the thing that frustrated me is, look, I know you got to have some sort of balance, but they kept trying to feed Gibby, and it wasn't happening, especially in the first half. And it seemed like when they kind of bailed out of that and started throwing the ball more and make some adjustments there in the second half, they started to move the football. Listen, there's no question the offensive line was overwhelmed. And that rookie, thank God he pulled a hamstring because he might have had 5 or 6. But yeah, look, in 2022 where we don't even kick extra points anymore, I'm not even sure what the use is to necessarily hand off, every second or third time if you're getting 2 yards. The only reason why the rushing total looked the way it did is because Samuel had a big run and Carson actually had a couple good runs. Other than that, the running game was very, very inefficient. I know you need it for play action and everything else. I don't pretend to know how to coordinate an offense or a defense. But overall, and I said this throughout the offseason, I think the offense is going to be okay. Like Chris said, Carson is a huge upgrade at quarterback, whether you like him or not. I thought the Carson Wentz slander in the offseason was outrageous. He's way better than people give him credit for. He's not elite, but he's good enough to win with. If he plays like this over 17 games, they'll be fine. The offense, right? But the defense, they didn't really change personnel much. They're basically bringing the same starters back, same coordinator back when they finish, 28, 29, 30th in the league? That never happens. And the idea was that they were going to communicate better. Well, where did we have problems? Communication, it appeared, right? There were 2 guys you had to cover yesterday. You had to cover Swift for only 5 plays. Didn't do a very good job of that. You had to cover St. Brown. Nobody was touching him. So, I don't know. I don't know what they can do to fix things defensively. In week 1, it appeared to my untrained eye that they were a lot more aggressive, that they pressured, right? I felt almost like a Greg Williams run defense there for just 1 week. I was excited. Yesterday, we were just on our heels the whole time, and we just couldn't keep up.
House, it's crazy because this is not something new. The defense has been bad over 2 different regimes all the way since Swaggy was here. It's incredible, and I don't understand.
Hold on.
Well, we did have that moment, in the 2020 season where we went up against a whole bunch of bad quarterbacks. And I think it maybe we started to believe our own BS a little bit. We ended up ranked very highly by all of the metrics, and I think it was really a function now of how bad the quarterbacks that we confronted were, and that we were, that there was a kind of complacency. I don't know whether this is accurate or not. I mean, we did draft defensively with Jamin Davis in the draft, the year before, so for sure we wanted to continue to try and improve. But EB used the word adjustment, and this is the reason why my focus is squarely on the coaching staff, because offensively, and I share EB's point of view on this, I really think this is the best offense we may have had in a decade since Alex Smith kind of arrived. The talent is there. Wait till B-Rob comes back. I mean, I was so enthused by seeing him on the Twitter last week. The way he was moving, his footwork looked spectacular, and he looked so good all preseason. I mean, I've been telling folks all across the land, wait till you see B-Rob. He had his misfortune, but it looks like he could be back soon. I think the offense is potent, and I think we're going to win 8 or 9 or maybe 10 games. It'll be because we get in these shootout situations, and we have the firepower there. But we're not going to win those games if the defense performs this way. And the inability to meet Detroit. This is why I said what I said about what seemed to be a lack of preparedness. Like, we could meet Jacksonville and meet their schemes in a way that we were able to put pressure in the second half on them, and I think we won that Jacksonville game because of it. We needed one stop in the second half, one stop, to have a chance to pull that game out yesterday, and we just couldn't get there. So I'm on Jack. I'm not going to let him off the hook.
And in fairness, I think we'll look back when the season's over, and Jacksonville will end up being a good win because I think they're going to
totally agree with this.
And I think Detroit's going to end up being one of those losses where you're like, listen, I think Detroit's going to end up being a fairly good team this year on the road. They had a chance to win that game. It was odd. It looked like they had no chance to win that game yesterday. And at the same point, they were down 8 with 6 minutes left. So they did. I remember telling my wife, they got to score with 3 minutes left to be in competitive nature in the rest of this game. And they whittled the clock down. I've never seen such poor time management in my life. Yeah. They whittled it down. And they didn't end up scoring that touchdown until after the 2-minute warning. It was ridiculous. And then they still were running the ball.
Man, it was crazy. As many awesome comebacks that happened yesterday, I had so much hope for us making that comeback, but it was just like, God damn it, like we ain't stop them again. Like, God damn, like I'm talking stuff in the I'm talking junk inside the Giants Stadium. I'm like, oh, we back in the ball game, and then somebody look back like, still in the ball game. I'm like, what happened? Oh, God damn it, score again. That was just so frustrating as a fan, and then like we just have so many high hopes for this defense, and it almost brings me back to kind of like when the Cowboys had brought in an older defensive coordinator. He was my first defensive coordinator in the league, Mike Nolan. Sometimes the league just passes you by, and maybe the scheme that had worked in the old NFL is not the scheme that works in the new NFL. And this Jack Del Rio defense, it really just hasn't worked since he's been here, outside of when you guys referred to when we played a host of bad quarterbacks and we looked like we were just amazing. We had Chase Young out there getting sacks. But since that period, we've been a bottom-of-the-line defense who can't get off the field, who's sitting back in zone coverages when we paid corners that's pressed corners. We got them playing 7-8 yards off the ball. And for what? And then we're not bringing no pressure. So our whole mindset was, let's get pressure with the front 4 and front 5. But if Chase Young is not there, and if John Allen is not getting a sack or Payne's getting a sack, that quarterback is comfortable. We have to be able to send blitzes, get that quarterback off the spot. And too many times you just see everyone sitting in coverage and hoping that one of our defensive linemen make a spectacular play. And, it's hard to ask the D-line to do that every single play, even though in your mind that's what you want them to do every single play. But it's hard to get a sack every play. Like, if you have a 1-sack game, that's 1 sack in 50 passing plays. You know what I mean? So we have to figure out a way to speed the clock up. Like when I go to the Giants game and I watch my old defensive coordinator, Wink, I mean, it's somebody coming free every time. If that quarterback doesn't make the right read on the first time he's looking and he pump fakes, he's getting smacked. He's forced to make a quick decision. Even if he can't make the decision, he's running for his life and throwing the ball out of bounds, but he's never felt comfortable. And watching our games, the quarterback just always has a chance to sit back there and like, la, 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 I'm going to go to this one, I'm going to this guy. Like, we're not speeding the clock up for this guy. We're not getting him off the spot if one of our defensive linemen are not making a spectacular play.
I thought we did that in week 1, though. Like, that was the first time.
We did.
Yeah.
We had, it was a lot more blitzes, and I was like, oh, we're finally sending our middle linebacker on blitzes. Like, he may not be
Well,
the best.
and
coverage
that first drive for the Lions, they sent Jamin Davis.
Right.
And got the
right.
second,
Great.
and it felt like, all right, here we go. Let's get this thing going. The other thing we need to do is talk about that I don't think gets talked about nearly enough is Ron Rivera, the team builder. They're weak in a lot of big spots. Like that defensive line, I understand Fedarian Mathis goes out, but if one man makes that big of a difference, here's something that's crazy. I saw it this morning. Deron Payne played on 87% of the snaps yesterday.
And
Jonathan Allen, 85% of the snaps, and they were supposed to have him on a pitch count. Now, I understand Daniel Wise goes down, but that means you didn't have depth ready. I mean, Swaggy, you can talk better than we can about this, but 87% for a D tackle feels outrageously
that's
high.
when guys wear down and don't make it through the season.
Right.
Next thing you
It
know,
didn't
after
even
week
seem
5,
like John Allen was
this-
on the field yesterday, did it?
I'm trying to tell you, like, even when I played, and this is where I think the coaches have made the mistake of just playing me too much. When I won, I think it was 2015, I had won the defensive MVP for the team. That next year, we never really went out and got any defensive linemen in free agency. And I played so many plays that next year that after the games, my body was so sore. Like I really like the gripe on me was, oh, Chris Baker doesn't like to practice. What people don't understand is I never really played my whole career. I didn't really start playing until year 4, year 5. And then even after I won the MVP on the team that previous year, I didn't play every series until maybe late in the game or some point in the second half, because I would play one series, then Stephen Pyer would play one series. I would play one series, Stephen Pyer would play. So I was always rested and fresh coming out there playing my best until it was crunch time. It was like, all right, I'm not coming out. You know, like you got to have your best players in the game at the end of the game. Like that's, clutch time. But if we're not having no type of rotation, your body is going to wear down. I don't care what position you play. I don't care how much work you put in the offseason. When you're banging as much as we bang in the interior line, your body has no option but to wear it out, and then you get hurt. And if we lose Payne or if we lose Allen, we're in trouble because we're already without Chase. You know what I mean? So they have to do a better job at bringing in other guys behind those guys so they can come in and play. I don't know if they just don't trust the guys that they have for them not to play them, but we have to figure out something. I mean, what we're doing can't be that difficult. We're just going in the B gap or A gap. So it can't be that difficult to plug a guy in there and let him play and give those guys some type of rest. Because if we continue at this rate, those guys are not going to make it through a 17-game season.
Well, it's interesting about Rivera House because there's guys out there on the market. There's D tackles. They went and got an undrafted kid from Michigan. And Ron likes to play the young guys, and I appreciate that. But I guess I just don't understand what's going on. And it's the same thing with the linebackers. The fans, I mean, people yelled at me all offseason about what's going on with the linebackers. The coaching staff obviously didn't think it was a problem. They had David Mayo out there for 16 plays yesterday, House.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the point that Swaggy just made. And it's kind of a recurring theme of this whole conversation about, their forecast for how they were going to be effective coming into this season, the personnel that they had. EB mentioned it. They didn't do anything in the offseason defensive personnel wise. So they have a confidence in the rotations. And yet here you are, it's week 2. And we're talking about 85%, 87% of the snaps that guys that don't belong playing that number of snaps are supposed to be on a pitch count, and we're already through it. So where is that disconnect occurring, right? What is the aspect? We lost in the trenches on both sides of the football, and we saw it in the very first quarter. I mean, that was like, oh, is this the way this script is going to go? We're going to get our asses kicked on both sides. They're going to rush us all up the field. And on the other side, we're not going to put any pressure. Jared Goff is going to sit back there and just throw the rock around. This is the way it's going to go against Detroit after what we saw, a reasonable defense against Jacksonville. So that's a concerning thing. We have injuries on the offensive line already as well. And, he's like you guys said, Aiden Hutchinson might have had 4 or 5 sacks, but for his own hamstring injury. So it's just this overwhelming sense of like, we've been here before. Are we going through this again? Who can we trust? Who can we point to? Who's the voice of reason? Where is the competency coming from? The only guy on the coaching staff that I'm willing to give a little credit is Scott Turner, because we continue to see some inventiveness on that offensive side. It looks like he realizes what he has in the way of the weapons, and he understands what he has with Carson Wentz. We're going to live with Carson's mistakes. It's fine. What he's capable of in terms of the accuracy with some of those deep balls, especially, it's a fair trade-off as far as I'm concerned. And he adjusted from first half to second half. Where's the defense gonna make that same kind of contribution? That's the question.
I love how the offense is looking, especially the use of Curtis Samuel, because I didn't realize how much we actually missed him. Because I just never seen him play because he was always hurt. But the way we're able to get him down the ball. He's going across the middle. He's making catches downfield. He's almost like our Deebo Samuels. You know what I'm saying? So I love how we're using him. We're getting our playmaker the ball, and we're really being explosive with him. And that's what you need as an offensive coordinator. And like you said, where is this same inventiveness with our defense? Like, why aren't we sending guys? Like, I feel like with the way the NFL is set today, especially when you play certain quarterbacks, I can understand not zero blitzing certain quarterbacks because they can see it. Like it's hard to zero blitz a Tom Brady because there's so much that you can disguise. There are so many ways that you can send it without him having seen that look before. But when you're playing at Jared Goff, man, if we had a defensive coordinator like Wink, he is bringing the house. And I'm telling you, like, that makes it so uncomfortable for quarterbacks who have to go through all their reads and really don't know who they're going to go to before the ball is snapped. I feel like when Tom Brady plays, he knows before the ball is snapped, he's going to this number 2 guy. But if you can make him make that one hiccup and get him off the spot, it changes the whole game. And too many times we just sit back and just rush forward thinking one of our defensive linemen are going to make a spectacular play every play, and that quarterback is able to go through all his progression. And I don't care who you are. You could be Jared Goff, you could be Taylor Heineken. If you have time to go through your progressions, you're going to win a game. Like, look at Dallas yesterday. What's the name of the quarterback that they had out there?
Connor Rush.
Yeah, he had time to make progressions, and he made the right read. And even when they did send a zero blitz, it wasn't even an all-out zero blitz. It was like a semi-zero blitz. He hit the right person. But if you give them that much time, that's all it takes in the NFL to make a good play or a bad play. But if you send that house, you make him have that one hiccup, it gets the guy so uncomfortable. I mean, you should have saw Baker Mayfield yesterday when they played the Giants. He was so uncomfortable. He was running for his life. But you made it seem, it was like, damn, are they playing Baker Mayfield or are they playing Michael Vick? Because he always was making some guy miss. But at the same time, he was uncomfortable. He was throwing the ball out of bounds. He was getting hit. And I just wish we would do that one time on our defense, make the quarterback uncomfortable outside of sitting a 4-man blitz and hoping that the defensive lineman make a spectacular play.
Might as well, because they're giving up 35 anyway. At least make them uncomfortable. Throw the kitchen sink at them. What do you got to lose?
Speaking of uncomfortable, I was on my national show on Friday talking all this stuff about how Washington was going to be sitting atop the NFC East by the time Monday, Tuesday morning rolled around. You looked at these matchups, the Cowboys against the Bengals, the desperate Bengals, Philly against the upstart Minnesota team. And then the Giants, I thought Carolina had a damn good chance of and then they did. I mean, Chris, you were at that game. And here we are. All 3 of those teams might catch wins. All 3 of the NFC East teams might be a game up on Washington. And you have to give credit to both the Giants and the Cowboys so far in terms of meeting the challenge that was put in front of them. And we just weren't there. And that's the part that is so disheartening to me.
Right.
Talk about a kick in the dick. Not only did the Cowboys win, but I had the Bengals in my survivor. So out there I go. The double whammo. EB, we're 4-point dogs at home against the Eagles. Are you surprised that the number is at 4? I thought maybe it'd be a little bit bigger than that, actually.
maybe. The thing with Philly is obviously they did a ton to upgrade, right? And Jalen Hurts is a hell of a leader. I mean, just dating back to what he's done in college. But I'm still not quite sold on him, frankly, as a consistent passer. So I would like to see them do what Chris was talking about. Let's just look. We're giving up 7.5 yards per carry on the ground. That's what Philly does. They love to pound the ball, and then they have those great receiving threats too. I'd like to just force Jalen to beat us with his arm and see how that works out for us. I'm nervous about the game, but there are some things that I think that we can build on from that game yesterday. You know, I think we can feel confident that this offense can score points the way we all agree. If we can just find a way to make them uncomfortable, force a few punts. How about a turnover? Can we create a turnover? If we can, I actually think we have a shot. I think we have a shot. I don't know. It's a bizarre thought, but I actually think we have a shot if we could just force Jalen into some uncomfortable spots, maybe create a turnover or two.
I'll tell you what, if the Eagles come out tonight and play great against Minnesota and really hold court at home in their home opener, that line might go up. It might be 6. You know, it might be 6 by the time the end of the week rolls around. And I am very concerned. EB just touched on it. Man, that Philly offense has so many ways to gouge you on the ground. Like the thing that I'm prepared to play, I need to get into some of the sports books and see what the future markets hold. I'm going to invest the house in Jalen Hurts having under 30 pass attempts against us next week. There's no reason for them to be throwing the ball even really 25 times. And they can. I mean, right, Swaggy?
It's a copycat league, and I tell you, every team watches the last team that played you, and everything that you struggle with, they're going to implement it in their game plan to see if they can work the same thing. And if they see we can't stop the run, and they have a running style quarterback, the hardest thing in the NFL is to stop a team that has a running quarterback, because when that quarterback hands the ball off to a running back, the defense has the advantage because you have 11 guys on that field. When that quarterback is able to keep that ball, now the advantage goes to the offense because now it's 11 on 11. They pick up an extra blocker. Now, if they could get him on the edge and make some of those plays like Lamar Jackson made on those read options yesterday, he's going to have a freaking field day. And it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if Washington can't stop the run, why do anything else? You know, I know they paid a lot of money for their star wide receiver from Tennessee, but if we can't stop the run, they're not even going to worry about passing the ball.
How would you coordinate it? If you were the D coordinator, what would you do?
Oh, I'm gonna stack the box, and I'm gonna make Jalen make difficult outside throws to the hashes, which I don't think he could do on a consistent basis. If I'm playing man up, or if I'm playing, tight coverage across the board and forcing him to pass into windows that are short, I'm going to live and die with him completing a couple first downs. But I'm going to send the house on him. I'm going to make sure I emphasize keeping him in the box, keep him in contain, don't allow him to break contain, but I'm bringing the house on him. I'm making him so uncomfortable, where it's like the only thing they feel comfortable doing is quick screens, bubble screens to the running back, and then we just got to rally and play as a football team. But I'm not going to sit back and rush for and allow him to, wait for someone to break down in their rush lanes, take off for 20 yards, then do a zone read and get another 20 yards, and then hand it off to the running back and get another 8 yards. I'm going to stack that box, stop the run, and send the house.
What did you think of them singling out Jamin Davis? I was fine with it last week. I've been singling him out for a year. But I thought yesterday it was a little weird because it was the one game where the kid flashed for me. We had the sack on the first play. He was pretty good in coverage on that one play down the sideline with Swift, which is a tough deal for him. He had a tackle for loss. I thought that was I was pleased with that. Yeah. And then they singled him out. I thought that was unfair.
Very unfair. I mean, at the end of the day, like coaches are, especially the good ones, they never blame the players. They always take the blunt of whatever went wrong. It's the coach's fault, not the player's fault. So to see them do that, especially a young player who we're trying to build his confidence after not even playing him and drafting him in the second round, the first round, whenever we drafted him. It's like why? What is the point? Like, we want this guy to play good. We want him to feel comfortable, but we have to put him in comfortable positions. If you see that every time he blitzes, he gets a sack, well, blitz his ass 60% of the time to see what happens. He may be the next goddamn Michael Parsons. You know what I mean? Like Navarro Bowman was really good at that. He was one of the best blitzing linebackers of our time, and that's what San Fran did. They blitzed him all the time, put him on one-on-one matchups with running backs, and Navarro used to always get sacks and tackles for. He was one of the best linebackers to ever play when we played, him and Pat P. But they know his strength, and they did what was best to his strength. They blitzed him. They put him on running backs. They sent him off the edge. Like, Jamie is a freaking athletic stud. That's why we drafted him, because how fast he was. Let's see how fast he gets. Every time he blitzes, something positive happens. He's either getting a tackle for a loss, or he's getting a sack, or he's causing some type of disruption. When we put him in coverage, which is probably not his strong point, because he really didn't play middle linebacker in college. He was a rush in or outside linebacker type. So to put him at middle linebacker and actually to make all the different calls, that's like moving a wide receiver to quarterback and making him construct the whole offense. Like, he wasn't built for that. He was a defensive lineman technically in college, and to put him in space and make him cover, that's not his strength. But let him blitz, let him cause disruption in the middle of our defense. I think we'll get a lot more out of him if we just had a blitz-happy defense.
Chris, I want to ask you, because a lot of those observations you just made also feel like they apply to another guy that I believe we've used incorrectly since he arrived via free agency, and that's William Jackson.
He's a press corner.
Exactly.
Off man. I don't
exactly.
That.
We haven't seen him once, right? Really in that position. And what you're describing in the way of how you might coordinate against Philadelphia sounds like maybe the first time in his tenure at Washington where he would have that opportunity to play that kind of press defense.
Man, my last year that I played after I left Tampa, I was in Cincinnati with William Jackson. And he was always matched up with AJ Green. And was it? It's AJ Green, right? Yeah, AJ Green. And, it was always a battle, but he was up at the line of scrimmage challenging him. Every play that he played, he was challenging wide receivers, and that was he got long arms. He's 6'3", 6'4". Mm-hmm. Like, let him, like, I don't understand. Like, we paid him all this money and watched him press guys just to bring him here and ask him to play like Richard Sherman. That's not his game. You know what I mean? Like, go man to man, let the man press. Even with Kendall Fuller, he's good at it. He might not be as good as Jackson, but put them, in situations where he's going to make that offensive guy make two more hiccups and have that quarterback hold the ball. I'm taking my chances with William Jackson, and with his speed and his length, I'm taking my chances with him pressing any wide receiver in this league.
And not just Jackson, but I kind of feel like St. Juice is not in the right spot either. Like, to me, he needs to be on the boundary pressing with the sideline to kind of help him with some of the speed. I mean, I don't think he was ever situated to be in the nickel inside there. And yet there he is. And I understand last year they were hoping he'd be outside and they could put Fuller inside. And for whatever reason, Fuller was toast inside last year. So they've moved him back outside. And they didn't do anything to address any of it. I mean, I dare you to name the fourth corner on the roster.
I'm trying to
and then I dare you to be willing to put him into a football game.
I'm trying to tell you, it feels like the same situation where it was in Dallas when you have a defensive coordinator that's just past his time. Like Mike Nolan, when he came and became the new defensive coordinator for Dallas, like the offensive scheme was just past what he was great at. And Mike Nolan was a good defensive coordinator for many years in this league. But at this point, the advancement of offenses, sometimes guys from that past generation of the NFL, it doesn't click. It's like it's so many other things that offensive coordinators are able to do that offenses weren't capable of doing when those guys were in their prime of coaching. And I think we're just at that point with Jack where the things that was always successful for you all those years in Jacksonville is not going to work in today's NFL. Back then, you could jam the hell out of wide receivers. You could reroute them and have your hands on them. and you can play aggressive and send for and be okay, because most of the time you're going to run the ball anyway. But that NFL is no more. There's no more base defense for the most part. Everybody's a nickel. Everybody's blitzing. They're finding ways to blitz the corners, blitz the safeties, all-out blitzes, making quarterbacks super uncomfortable. And I just feel like we're back in like a 2000 defense where, we can jam guys and make it a little bit uncomfortable, rerouting guys and get pressure with 4 and hoping that the offense will run the ball and hopefully we can stop the run. And that's just not the league we play in anymore.
I saw this morning that Chase Roulier, short-term IR. I don't think they have a natural backup center on the roster right now, and I hate to tell them, but they got Jordan Davis coming up next week. So I don't know what the plan is, and
That's
the
I just saw
the guards didn't play very well either on Sunday. That to me is going to be their biggest problem coming up against Philly. Is it the O-line couldn't stop Detroit's defensive line? I don't know what they plan on doing against Phillies.
That's a man child. That guy is really a giant. I saw a couple Instagram posts with him, and just seeing him walk out the tunnel, it's like, gee, it's like looking at Goliath.
I think it's just quick passing, right? I mean, I don't know what else you can do. Quick pass, get rid of the ball in 2 seconds.
Either quick passing or speed up the offense like Chip Kelly did, like get him tired, get him off the field, but just letting him get comfortable and letting him catch his breath after every play. Oh, hell no. We got to find a way to get him uncomfortable and get him off the field.
Until they get the sledgehammer back, totally with you, EB. I wouldn't care if they never handed the ball off again and just threw. They need to be throwing the ball to run the ball, not the other way around. This team is set up
right.
Quite the obvious. And the other thing really is 82 doesn't quite look healthy yet. I mean, I know he caught the touchdown pass there, but he doesn't look quite the same. Let's do this, fellas. We'll wrap up the show here. We'll start House with you and go around. You think this team is closer to the team that we watched in the second half and the team that built Jacksonville? Where do you sit after 2 weeks? That's the other thing, I mean, it's always like, is it misery Monday? Is it overreaction Monday? After 2 weeks, how do you feel about the squad?
Big dog is both. I'm miserable and I'm overreacting, but I'm glass half full. It's a long season. One thing we learned last year, 17 weeks is a long time. It's really like 4 seasons inside of one. So you constantly have the opportunity to rewrite the script, to rewrite your own trajectory. And I think we have enough talent on the offense for sure to try and the season's not over. We have our first divisional matchup this week. It's crucial. It's against the team that many folks have picked as the sort of underdog NFC East leader. They are on the odds right now because of the injury to Dak Prescott. But look, if we don't, and one thing that is helpful, that Jonathan Gannon defense that they play in Philadelphia. If you want to find another fan base that's frustrated with the defensive scheme as we are right here talking, ask the Eagles fans about the Jonathan Gannon defense. And if we see tonight Minnesota come out and Justin Jefferson do what he did to Green Bay last week, they're going to be calling for that guy's head, I think. So, I mean, it's exactly the game plan we're talking about, which is short passes, get the ball into the middle of the field, make their linebackers, susceptible and vulnerable. And it's going to be a shootout. I don't see a scenario under which we're going to come in and shut out Philadelphia, but I think, we'll find out exactly how competitive we're going to be this season next week. It's a referendum game, even though it's only week 3.
EB, what about you, bud?
Yeah, I think it's fair. One thing I've also learned is that you never know quite what to expect week to week. And that first half was just so bad. Actually, when I watched it, I just kind of was like, all right, whatever. It's just one of those games where it gets away from you and it's just going to be ridiculous. I mean, we're not very good on defense, but I don't think we're that bad. Clearly, offensively, we're better than what we showed. So I think, it's a division rivalry game. I think it's going to play a lot closer than people think, and I think we'll give them a fight. And I agree with House. If they go out there, though, and play poorly and get their doors blown out, that's going to be a bad sign. But I expect them to hang in there. We'll probably see a Carson Wentz special. We'll probably see some, inexplicable turnover that makes us crazy. But I think we'll play better in the first half. I think it'll be competitive.
And Swaggy, what do you think? Where you at on this team after 2 games?
It's kind of hard to judge. You like the fan in you wants them to be better, but the reality is we're probably just an average team. With the hopes of being a lot better than what we really are. But then you just have to gauge yourself. I mean, guys, we just played the Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been perennially like the worst teams in the NFL. So it's just like, how do we even gauge off of those 2 games? I mean, the only real way to judge how our season really may look is after playing a division game. These are the games that help us get into the playoffs, essentially. So no matter what happens outside of the division, if we win a division game, we win the goddamn division to get into the playoffs. So this is going to be a big game. And, anytime you play a division rival, like you play a game, like very seldomly do you have a big blowout in a division game because those games are so tight. Both teams know each other. They play each other twice a year. So like the likelihood of a blowout is probably slim, but the guys that are going to be ready to play, anytime you play a division game, that's one that you always have marked up on your calendar as must-win games or games that you really have to play well in. So, we just got to cross our fingers and hope for the best. That we just find a way to make some plays, find a way to finally bring some pressure on defense and make quarterbacks uncomfortable. But it's just a wait-and-see game. We just don't know what Commanders team we're going to see. Is it going to be the first half team that it's getting blown out by 21 points that can't do anything right on offense and defense, or is it going to be that second half team where the offense is scoring points and then we're screaming for the defense to make one stop so we can get back into the game? So it's just I
always find it interesting since I've gotten to meet and know Swaggy a little bit. I don't know if y'all caught the comments from Fields last night about he says it's basically it's like fans don't understand. It's like, I don't understand why they're upset after losses. We're the ones in the locker room putting on all the work. The fans don't put in any work. But Chris has told me it's totally different now that he's like a fan watching because he definitely gets all upset and stuff. So I think players see it differently when they're playing versus when they're done and maybe get a better appreciation. Because as a fan, we do put in the work. It's the Sundays of crying and upset.
Right, you have an emotional connection to the team, so it's just like even though you're not there practicing, emotionally you're invested.
No doubt, no doubt.
Fellas, wish we were discussing a win, but still had a hell of a time today. Appreciate all you guys coming on and spending a little time with us.
All
Thank
right,
you.
guys.
Keep hope alive.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thanks,
Go
fellas.
Commanders.
Go command. Well, I can't say it. The C words.